All right, what is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Border City Kids Live podcast. I'm just going to wait a couple minutes before we get started, but I want to send a shout out right now to my buddy Eric, who was with me live the other day on our show. We did a special Halloween episode on the top Halloween movies ever made. Please check that out on our YouTube page, www.youtube.com/@the-border-city-kids to check that one out. Tonight we have a big episode on our episode that's coming out tomorrow, which is about the 2024 Greenfield tornado. So we're just going to wait a couple minutes here before we get started. But I appreciate you being here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please share the show. That would be great. We appreciate that here at our studio. So we'll just wait a couple minutes before we get started here. But once again, thank you for being here. We will get started shortly. If you have any questions about tonight's episode, or if you have any suggestions about storms that you want to see covered on this show, please write them in the chat and we will get to them in future episodes. One episode we might cover very shortly is the current hurricane situation right now that just went through Jamaica, and we're talking about Hurricane Melissa, which was a Category 5 storm with a perfectly symmetrical eye of the hurricane, which did a ton of destruction towards Jamaica, and it's gone through the Caribbean, and I believe it's going to head up the east coast of the States, possibly hitting Canada on the way. So we will get started shortly. And once again, thank you for being here. Please subscribe, hit the like button on this video. I appreciate that. And share the show with your friends if they are into storm chasing or movies that are action, like the movie Twister or something like that. That'd be great. So I will wait about 30 more seconds and we will get started tonight, guys. But once again, thank you for being here. As well, don't forget to tune in tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We have our episode coming out on the Greenfield tornado. So let's get it started here, guys. Welcome, welcome. Tonight we are covering the 2024 Greenfield tornado. So this is like a live information session where you guys can pop in and you're more than welcome to ask questions or ask me anything you'd like, or if you have any stories of your own on any type of storm, such as a hurricane, tornado, maybe a tsunami or something like that, please pop on, share your experience. You're more than welcome to do so here. So tonight we're going to examine one of the most destructive tornadoes in recent U.S. history, and this is the 2024 Greenfield tornado. And this was an F4 tornado that struck on May 21st, 2024, so just about a year and a half ago. This event caused widespread damage, multiple fatalities, unfortunately, and became a major case study for meteorologists and emergency management teams. Throughout the session, I'm going to break down the science, the timeline of what happened, the impact of this storm, not just locally, maybe throughout the state or nationally as well, and maybe looked at potentially changing our storm warning systems here in Canada and the States as well, because storms are becoming more and more violent. I will also explain any terminology that we're unfamiliar with as we go along, and we will get started here today. So once again, thank you for being here. So just to summarize this storm, let's go through some of the quick statistics of it before we jump into exactly what happened that day. So the date that this took place on was May 21st, 2024. The time was roughly 3 p.m. Central Time. If you're Eastern, that'd be 4 o'clock. This was an F4 tornado on the enhanced Fujita scale, one short of an F5 tornado. This was a massive tornado with wind speeds peaking at around 185 miles per hour, so insanely fast winds. This storm path lasted for about 44 miles, and the width of this storm or this tornado was about 1,000 yards. And if we're looking at injuries, we had 35 injuries and 5 deaths. So unfortunately, that's what happens with these storms. When there's a storm warning, when there's any kind of warning that's sent out, I know some people live in states where they're used to this kind of thing, but it's always good to be on the lookout, and it's always good to take cover because your life matters. You only live once. So let's take a look at, and once again, here's just another image of the Greenfield tornado in its path, and it ended right around Greenfield, Iowa. So it stayed on track for about 44 miles before dissipating and peaked winds at 175 to 185 miles per hour. And this took place a year and a half ago. Okay, so this picture here just shows the debris detection radar that was put up. And you can obviously see there's a bunch of red on the radar. That's looking at precipitation. But you can obviously see on Greenfield, if you look just south of Greenfield on here, that the color's like that bluish purple. And that's because debris was detected because there was a tornado that touched down and did tons and tons of damage. Very unfortunate, but you can see it's pinpointed right on Greenfield, Iowa, which is, it's like an exact location on it. You can see it just sitting there, just right about here. So they were unfortunately hit with this one. And with their warning systems, especially in small towns, it's very unfortunate. There's not much they can do. And this is, again, just another image right here, just showing you that pinpointed spot right on Greenfield of the debris tracker, just showing that something major had hit. And this was at 3:41 p.m., which is Central Time. And you can see that the precipitation around this supercell was intense. It was red. You can see there's some pinks here, which is insanely hard rains, thunderstorms. But right here, there's you can see there's clearly a vortex. This is spawning a tornado right on Greenfield, which is where we see our destruction. And once again, just same thing. This just summarizes with a radar shot of the Greenfield tornado in Iowa. So I'm going to leave this up right here while I go through the background on Greenfield, Iowa itself, because we'd like to know what Greenfield is if you haven't heard of it. It is a small town in Iowa. It is in Adair County, southwestern Iowa. The population is around 2,000 people, and this town is known for its agricultural community, historic courthouse, and its close-knit neighborhoods. Before 2024, Greenfield had not seen a violent tornado in decades, and I feel like part of that would be part of the problem, because they've probably seen tons and tons of thunderstorms. They've probably had tons and tons of tornado watches, possibly warnings. And because none of the storms actually hit with hard tornadoes or anything like that, they become accustomed to just getting thunderstorms, which is why some people may not have taken cover, and that leads to your injuries and fatalities. Greenfield is located in Tornado Alley, which is the region of the central United States most prone to tornadoes. Major tornadoes that directly strike populated towns, but they're relatively rare. Now, it is rare because this is such a small town and it's very easy to miss it when you think about the big picture of supercell storms. Just the way they go, it has to line up perfectly, and just by looking at the shot on the radar, you can clearly see that this one hit it head on, which is very unfortunate. Okay, and if we want to take just a quick look at the damage in Greenfield, Iowa, you can clearly see that houses are torn apart right to their foundations. We see trees completely destroyed, just like the roots left. Everything's gone. It's a debris field. Streets are taken down, powers knocked down. Just total chaos in Greenfield, Iowa. So let's take a look at the meteorological setup on the day of May 21st, 2024. The Storm Prediction Center, abbreviated SPC. So SPC is the Storm Prediction Center, and they issued a high-risk outlook for parts of Iowa on May 21st, 2024. The SPC is a division of the National Weather Service, which is responsible for forecasting severe weather across the United States. A high risk is the highest category of severe weather outlook. It means that there is a strong potential for long-lived intense, and possibly deadly tornadoes. Here's what the atmosphere looked that day. So I'm just going to load up. Let's go back. Okay, you can just see the cell. And I'll leave this here just because I think that shows you how intense this supercell actually was on the day of May 21st, 2024. So the moisture on the day was warm, humid, and it was from the Gulf of Mexico, and it had moved north into Iowa. So we have a lot of moist air coming from south from the Gulf of Mexico, moving further up into Iowa that day, and there was a lot of instability, which means that the air near the surface was much warmer than the air higher up, which creates a rising motion. This is a key ingredient for thunderstorms. There was a lot of wind shear, which means that the wind changes speed and direction with height. Strong wind shear helps storms rotate. So the more wind shear we have, the more that the storm's going to form this rotation. And with rotation, you'll usually see, especially in Tornado Alley, you're going to get severe thunderstorms or tornadoes. Okay, and there's also a dry line, which is a boundary. It's usually like a cold front, which separates warm, moist air from hot, dry air. This dry line acts as a trigger for storms to form. And that's what we saw that day. Meteorologists also measured very high CAPE, and CAPE stands for Convective Available Potential Energy. CAPE is a measure of how much energy the atmosphere has for storm development. The higher the CAPE, the stronger the storms can become. In short, the atmosphere over Iowa that day was loaded with energy, rotation, and lift. These are the key ingredients that form strong supercells and potentially violent tornadoes. And that's exactly what we see on that day. So this is exactly what we're looking at here, that pink right there. There's your strong supercell, violent tornadoes spawning in this. So let's take a look at the actual tornado formation and path on May 21st, 2024 in Greenfield, Iowa. By mid-afternoon, several thunderstorms developed across southwestern Iowa. One of these quickly became a supercell, a powerful rotating thunderstorm capable of producing long-lived tornadoes. So whenever you hear a supercell, that's a long-lived, powerful rotating thunderstorm capable of producing tornadoes. Around 2:55 p.m. Central Time, the radar showed strong rotation over Adair County, which is just southwest of Greenfield. But this storm was moving from southwest to northeast, so they'd be right in the storm track. Storm chasers in the area began to report a visible wall cloud, okay? It's a lowering from the storm base where tornadoes often form, okay? And they're very familiar with this in that part of the United States, being in Tornado Alley. Shortly after, a funnel cloud touched down and began intensifying rapidly. So it usually starts as like a thin tornado. Let's see if I got something here. So in the early stages, I'm going to use this. This is probably not even towards the early stages of the tornado, but it was a very thin tornado that eventually widened up, and you can see through these pictures here. And there's some pretty crazy pictures of Greenfield, of what actually it had become. Here is the dry line that we see on the radar here, and that's through Kansas City all the way up here through Minnesota, and this is where you see those storms form. And unfortunately, Iowa and Greenfield specifically fell right in the line of that. So we have our warm, moist air coming from the south and a dry line coming from west to east, and this created that rotation that we see, and Greenfield became the victim of a tornado. Okay, and this right here is just a picture of what kind of storms we're seeing within a 9-day period from May 19th to May 28th across the eastern half, I'd say, of the United States. Okay, and you can see there's a lot going on here. There are tornado warnings. You can see tornado paths. You can see mostly F2 with the yellow triangles. You can see a few F3s, some F4s. And I assume that's going to be our Greenfield tornado right in here. I don't think I spot an F5 tornado in there because it's very rare. But this tornado was one of the strongest ones in that 9-day period. And May is your month for tornadoes. If you are in Tornado Alley, this is your main storm season. You will see tornadoes throughout the summer. But the month of May specifically is very volatile, and you're seeing your tornadoes. You will get a lot. Okay, so let's go back. So once again, here's just the damage that we see from these tornadoes, and this took place in May. So at 3:30 p.m., the tornado had grown into a large wedge tornado, meaning it was wider than it was tall, which means it's absolutely massive. It covers a lot of land, a lot of surface area, and it has, it's usually a sign of an intense storm. The radar data showed a well-defined tornado debris signature, which is called TDS, a radar detection of debris being lofted into the air, confirming a destructive tornado was on the ground. And that's this picture right here. Okay, that's your debris tracker. So when you see debris, when there's debris, we clearly know something's causing it, and the most likely cause of that would be a tornado. The tornado traveled northeast directly toward the town of Greenfield. According to the National Weather Service in Des Moines, the tornado remained on the ground for about 45 minutes, traveled 42.38 miles. I see most of the official reporting say 44, and reached a maximum width of 1 mile. The peak winds were estimated at 185 miles per hour, earning it a rating of an F4 on the enhanced Fujita scale. So the question is, if you're not familiar with tornadoes, you're not familiar with the enhanced Fujita scale, what exactly is an F4 tornado? So let's take a look at what it actually means. So the enhanced Fujita scale, abbreviated the EF scale, so F scale, is used to rate tornadoes by the damage they cause. So here's how it works. There are 6 categories of F tornadoes. The first category is an F0. This means very light damage, and this is where the winds are between 65 to 85 miles per hour. The F1 category is moderate damage, between 86 to 110 miles per hour. F2 is considerable damage, and I know it goes a lot more into detail on this, but these are pretty much looked at by the damage that they cause, and the more damage, you can assume there's more higher winds with them. So F2 has considerable damage, between 111 and 135 mile per hour winds. F3, which has severe damage, falls between 136 and 165 miles per hour winds. Okay, F4, which is what we see in the Greenfield tornado, which means the winds were between a speed of 166 to 200 mile per hour winds. And the F5 does incredible damage, over 200 mile per hour winds. Now, I believe the record for winds right now, if we actually dive into the actual wind speed of tornadoes, is in Oklahoma. I want to say it was Moore, Oklahoma, 1999. I believe the record is 306 mile per hour winds, which I think is actually the fastest winds ever recorded in history from a storm. So this one here we can see is between, an F4 because it falls between 166 miles per hour and 200 mile per hour winds. An F4 tornado means it's well built, and the homes can be completely destroyed. Trees debarked, which is what we see in these pictures here. If we go back to these pictures, these trees are totally destroyed. They're still in the ground, but everything on the trees are totally destroyed. So that's what your F4 tornado does. Vehicles were also thrown long distances, and you can see that there's vehicles scattered all over in the background here. So this was definitely an F4 tornado, and this is what the National Weather Service concluded in their findings of this tornado. This was amongst the most violent tornadoes ever seen in the United States in 2024. So this was one of the biggest. The impact on Greenfield. So let's go to another picture here of some of the damage. You could see if you live in this area and your home is here and your vehicle's here and everything you have is here and it's gone, the question is, where do you start? Like, where do you go from here? I feel like that's the hardest part. How do you restart? I know insurance might cover it, but where do you go to live when your home has just been totally destroyed and looks like this? the good news is from all this is that you're not alone. You have others there that are going through the same situation. So you can work together. Oh, let's see here. And this is a picture of a solar wind farm. And you can see that the tornado just knocked it straight down. Let's go into the impact itself on Greenfield. So the tornado reached Greenfield around 3:40 p.m. It entered from the southwest and tore through residential neighborhoods, causing catastrophic destruction. Entire homes were leveled to their foundations. Vehicles were tossed hundreds of feet. And you think about the weight of vehicles, hundreds of feet they were tossed. Power lines, trees, and communication systems were completely destroyed. Critical infrastructure was also hit. The Adair County Memorial Hospital sustained major damage and had to move patients into temporary care areas. Roads became blocked by debris, delaying emergency response because the roads are all filled with debris. You can't get through them. So they had to actually bring equipment in to move and clear off all the streets so people could get through and clean up the area and help people out. Gas leaks and downed wires created additional hazards as well. After the tornado had passed, emergency crews described the town as unrecognizable. So you could walk through and you wouldn't even know where things were because of how much damage was done, how far debris was blown around, and the place was totally unrecognizable because you don't know where you are. Everything's gone. Aerial photos showed large sections of Greenfield totally flattened. Let's see if I can get a picture here. And that just shows you, and this actually, I'm going to assume this shows our path right through Greenfield here. I would assume just because this is all destroyed and you can still see that some of these homes were still intact, that our path on this aerial shot is right through here. And you could just see total destruction. Now, that's not to say that if you lived on the outside of this path that you're okay, because we still see some homes that were totally brought down. We see vehicles that were moved. We still see tons of debris everywhere. But I think it's safe to say that our path went straight through here, which is pretty incredible. So tornado surveys were done, and this is what they came up with here. So they came up with 6 separate tornadoes. This one up here, I believe, this one here was Greenfield down here, and it started southwest and moved northeast. But there were 6 separate tornadoes recorded that day, and Greenfield was one of them. And the reason I do cover these small towns when it comes to these tornadoes on my page is because you don't hear about these small towns that get hit by these tornadoes unless it's local news. You're not going to hear them on the major networks because they're so small. There's not enough media coverage on these tornadoes, and I think every one of these victims deserves to have their stories told, deserves to be recognized, and when it comes to resilience, they deserve to have their story told about their stories of resilience, about how they came together and they worked together to come back, to fight back, and to get their homes back and get back to living. I'm just going to leave up the actual radar shot. The storm resulted in 5 confirmed fatalities and at least 35 injuries. Damage estimates later exceeded $31 million US. So for a small place, this storm did $31 million. Regional severe weather outbreak. So the Greenfield tornado was part of a much larger severe weather outbreak across the Midwest region on May 21st. Multiple tornadoes were reported across Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri. Several of these reached F2 and F3 intensity levels, but the Greenfield tornado was by far the most destructive. Its wind speed and its width of storm and its path length were deadly. The same storm system also produced hail, damaging winds, and flash flooding in parts of Iowa that evening as well. So the National Weather Service does a survey to confirm the data and the details about this tornado. And here's what they have confirmed. Obviously, the date of this tornado was May 21st, 2024 in Adair County in Greenfield, Iowa. This storm was an F4 tornado on the enhanced Vegeta scale. The peak winds they did summarize was at 185 miles per hour. And if you're in Canada, that's 298 kilometers per hour, which is incredible. The maximum width of this storm is around 1 mile or 1.6 kilometers wide. This tornado lasted, or its duration on the ground was 45 minutes, or around 45 minutes. It claimed 5 fatalities and 35 plus injured. And like I said, the damage was between 31 and 32 million US dollars. The National Weather Service noted that the intensity of damage was consistent with upper end F4 level winds. So this was on the close, like only 15 miles per hour away from becoming an F5 tornado. So the winds were almost there. They also reported clear signs of debarking of trees, where strong winds stripped trees of all their bark, and ground scoring, where grass and topsoil were ripped away. So it actually rips the grass and topsoil right away. So it exposes the bare earth. Both are indicators, of a violent tornado. Now, we're going to look at the recovery, but let's go through a few more pictures here just so we can get an idea of what this tornado actually looked like. So this is not too long after the tornado formed, but you can see that the tornado is getting wider, more deadly. Same thing, if you actually go really close, this is quite a distant picture from the tornado, but if you get closer to that, it's probably around that mile wide. This is an interesting picture here because it almost shows multiple vortices inside the main funnel. So it is a real picture. It is what the tornado looked like that day, and it has multiple vortices. Once again, this is around the same thing. You're seeing multiple vortices in the same tornado. And this is the picture I want to get to here. Okay, and we can see that the people that live in these areas are totally devastated by what has happened. Most times when you do get a tornado warning or there's a severe thunderstorm warning, you're not expecting anything different from the norm because they haven't seen these in decades. But this time, this tornado hit Greenfield spot on. So the emergency response and recovery. Local emergency responders, law enforcement, and the Iowa National Guard were on the scene within hours, so they were all deployed to this area. The American Red Cross established temporary shelters for displaced residents. It's the only thing they could do to come up with a place for these people to live in the meantime. Volunteers from nearby counties assisted with cleanup and search efforts. Governor Kim Reynolds declared a state of emergency for Adair County, allowing for federal aid and disaster relief funds to be released to this community. Utility companies would work to restore power and communication lines while debris removal operations continued for weeks, because this isn't a couple days of a job. This is going to take a long time just to clean it up. That was the job here, just to clean it up. Then they have to rebuild. Community support was immediate. Churches, schools, and local organizations came together to provide food, supplies, water, and emotional support for some of the survivors. The meteorological analysis, they studied the Greenfield event and identified several contributing factors to its severity. Strong low-level shear. These are the winds near the surface, and they were from the southeast, while upper-level winds came from the southwest. This directional change caused storm rotation. So we have two separate winds coming from the southwest and southeast, and the lower-level winds, so closer to the ground, was from the southeast, and the upper level, so higher up, was from the southwest. So this is your rotation that starts to happen within tornadoes. This storm had high instability. Surface air was warm and humid, providing buoyancy for strong updrafts, providing updrafts to the clouds. Strong lift and convergence. The dry line and surface low pressure system created upward motion, helping storms form and obviously intensify. Persistent supercell structure. The parent, so the main thunderstorm, maintained rotation for over an hour, allowing a tornado to remain on the ground for an unusually long time. And usually tornadoes don't last a long time. So 44 minutes of a tornado is considered a very long time. These factors contributed to an environment almost perfectly suited for a long-track, violent tornado. Let's just go back here. And we can see these families are just devastated here. They're holding each other close because it's all they have right now to get through this disaster. And I think this is a strong picture here to show the support of the country with the flag in the background. I think it's a strong message that if people can work together, your Americans come together and get through this, help each other, clean up. Resiliency is always a big part of these storms. And I've mentioned them in every single storm that I've talked about, whether it's a hurricane or a tornado. People work together and you can overcome anything, even though it seems like it's impossible. Once again, just the damage. You can see the debarking on the trees. You can see the houses damaged, cars flipped because of the wind speed. And like I said, this was 185 mile per hour winds and close to 298 kilometers an hour if you are in Canada and you're unfamiliar with the mile per hour. Once again, another strong picture, and I always appreciate the flag in the background to show that storms can be unpredictable, they can be intense and violent, but at the end of the day, the people have the will to survive, and the people can come through. And just this, once again, just an incredible picture of just the damage it can do. You can see the debarking on the trees in the background here. Incredible. Totally debarked. And this vehicle totally destroyed. Doesn't even look, it looks like this vehicle would have been at least 30, 40 years old, and I bet you it wasn't. So just total destruction. Here is just a quick article that I had found online about the Greenfield tornado, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Preliminary reports. So these are early reporting before it was actually made official. Preliminary reports from the National Weather Service classified the Greenfield tornado at least an F3 tornado in southwest Iowa, and it started in Johnston as an F2. The crews are still surveying the tornado tracks and damages, but no as of Thursday, so it's a couple days later. Those three tornadoes tracked 130 miles through the state. So there are three tornadoes that tracked 130 miles starting at about 2:45 p.m. And Greenfield was near the end of that hour where it was the duration of the tornado was on the ground. So that was just an article that I had found. And once again, I just wanted to summarize the path of destruction was about 44 miles. The wind speed was about 185 miles per hour peaked out. And this classified, or the National Weather Service classified this as an F4 tornado on the enhanced Vegeta scale. And this was May 21st, 2024. So it's a very violent tornado. And I'm just going to leave this picture up here. And I think this just demonstrates the intensity of this tornado. You can tell by all of the signs around her of what type of tornado this was. This was not good by any means. So the Greenfield tornado reinforced several key lessons about tornado safety and preparation. Early warnings work. The earlier you give a warning to a community, the more they have time to prepare themselves to find shelter and to be safe. Giving residents time to seek shelter is always a priority. Safe rooms save lives. Homes with basements or purpose-built storm shelters provide the best protection. Community coordination matters. Quick action by local officials and volunteers reduced further losses of life. So these officials in this small community was able to alert the residents that a storm and a very deadly and violent storm was coming. The weather awareness. Staying alert on high-risk days can make all of the difference in the world when seconds matter. You do not have a lot of time to find shelter and to seek shelter when there's a storm coming. Okay, and I'm just going to run through the facts one more time. So this was an F4 tornado in Greenfield, Iowa on May 21st, 2024 in Adair County. This was a 42.38 mile wide path with a maximum width of 1 mile. The peak winds were around 185 miles per hour, and the fatalities, there were 5. There were over 35 injured in this tornado, and the damages were over $31 million US. And the time on the ground in its total duration was 45 minutes approximately. This was the strongest tornado to hit Iowa in more than a decade. Go back here. So this is, unfortunately, a scary situation to be in, and I hope that the Greenfield residents, along with all the other residents that were victim to tornadoes that day, were able to come together to overcome this tragedy. And I hope all of them had insurance to cover the damage that was done, to rebuild their lives and to get back to normal. The 2024 Greenfield tornado stands as a powerful reminder of how quickly severe weather can change lives. While the damage was catastrophic, the response demonstrated the strength and unity of small communities. Through rebuilding and recovery, Greenfield has become a symbol of resilience and a real-world example of why weather preparedness and scientific understanding are so important. So once again, if you are watching this, I appreciate you being here. If you have been with me throughout this, I would appreciate it if you hit the like button on this video, if you subscribe to my channel, because I have new episodes every single week. I've been doing this for a few months now, and I really like doing it. I like covering all of these super strong tornadoes and hurricanes that have damaged small communities, because I think these small communities deserve to have their recognition, because they don't get the recognition that I feel like they deserve. And every person matters in every single situation. I would also appreciate if you share the show, maybe on your Facebook page or Instagram or whatever. Lots of people are interested in thunderstorms, tornadoes. Lots of people love sitting outside in thunderstorms, and a lot of people would appreciate this type of thing. Please hit my YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thebordercitykids and check out all my other videos. This Greenfield tornado episode will be released at noon tomorrow, and I would appreciate if you check it out. So I'm going to tell you thanks for watching, thanks for joining me tonight, and thanks for joining me in this live information session. Stay informed, stay weather aware, and always respect the power of nature. I appreciate you being here. Have a good night. Enjoy the episode tomorrow.